Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. With the central government committed to labour law reforms and several state governments proposing their own versions, we present a radical discussion paper designed to show the Modi government the way forward. In part 2, we bring together top economists, industrialists and trade unionists to discuss whether hire and fire is possible in India. But first, should Chief Justices and judges of the Supreme Court be appointed governors after their retirement? In fact, would any job in the gift of the government suggest their behaviour was biased and their integrity questionable? Or is that an unfair imputation? This is an issue that has been raised by news that former Chief Justice Sathashivam is to be appointed Governor of Kerala just 4 months after retirement. In part 1, we discuss this issue that goes to the very heart of judicial independence. And now joining me to discuss whether judges should accept post-retirement jobs from the government is former Law Minister Salman Khurshid, former Attorney General and Solicitor General Soli Sorabji, former Vice Chairman of the Law Commission KTS Tulsi, and BJP spokesperson Lalita Kumara Manglam. Soli Sorabji, the government has decided to appoint Justice Sathashivam, who retired as Chief Justice of India in April, as Governor of Kerala, and Justice Sathashivam has himself confirmed this to the Hindu newspaper. Now, it's created quite a controversy. In your opinion, is this a wrong move or is the criticism unwarranted?
Well, there's nothing unconstitutional about it. But please understand, what's the position of the governor? The governor is appointed by the central government in a judgment delivered by the Constitution bench to which Sathashivam was a party. I argued, give the governor notice, show him cause, hear him before you remove or transfer him. The bench said no. Now the governor, from the very nature of his functions, has to perform certain functions and responsibilities which are political in nature. For example, formation of the ministry, or whether how should we dissolve. These are strictly controversial matters. Now, for the former Chief Justice of India to be reduced to that, I think it's demeaning the office. We have never had any Chief Justice occupy the office of a governor, and for a very good reason. Of course, you can make it the head of some judicial tribunal, where judicial channels are required, but not governor, where he can be even removed, and there would be hardly any judicial review for that, and you expect Sathashivam to go to court for judicial review. I think at a time when the public perception of judiciary is not very flattering, I think this move has not been helpful at all, to say the least.
Now, Mr.
I'm very saddened by it.
Mr. Tulsi, you've been quoted in the newspapers as saying that in fact governors would make, Chief Justices would make ideal governors. But let me put you the opposite concern, and it's this, that if judges of the Supreme Court and High Courts are eligible for jobs in the gift of the government after retirement, people will question their behaviour and their judgments when they were in office, and that in turn could raise question marks, A, about their individual integrity, and B, about the independence of the judiciary. So do you want to reconsider your belief that Chief Justices will make ideal governors?
No, you see, my reason is that after all, whom are you going to make governors? When you make politicians the governors, then whenever there is a change in the government, this problem is that they have to be removed and another set come in. You see, the issue is eminent persons who will be able to play a neutral game, and judges, by their very training, firstly they are constitutional masters, and then they can be able friend, philosopher and guide of the chief ministers. And the third is that the central government in office, the constitution does not permit them to give instructions to the governor to return a bill, or to give assent to the bill, or to reserve it for the president, etc., where these instructions are routinely being given, and the office of the governor is actually getting undermined. The constitution did not envisaged that the governor will be an agent of the center. The governor was only a representative of the president, and he was to take several decisions in his own discretion. But because of the politicians becoming ministers, and who else, you won't like to have police officers as the governors. You won't, then the only other persons who are left in the field are civil servants, where again the same allegation can be made. I don't think that our governor's office is not an employment, not an office of profit. It is a constitutional post for which they are eminently suitable.
Salman Khurshid, we've got two very different, in fact, polar opposite views. Sori Sorabji, who thinks it's a very bad idea for judges and chief justices to be made governors. Mr. Tulsi, who thinks that, in fact, judges would make ideal governors. Now, as a former law minister and as a politician, where do you stand? Let me put this to you. If former Chief Justice Hidayatullah could become Vice President, if former Justice Fatima Bibi could become Governor of Tamil Nadu, then why shouldn't Justice Sathashivam in this day and age become Governor of Kerala?
Well, I think the issue is not of an individual Chief Justice or a judge. I think an issue of principle. Circumstances, conditions change from time to time, and there may have been conditions where everyone thought, well, this is a splendid idea. We are now in an extremely divided society at present, very contentious on most issues, very suspicious of each other, very combative, and therefore I think we put these very eminent personalities in a difficult situation. That even when they get appointed, there are all kinds of debates and questions being raised about them. And I think to protect them, it's important to protect them from that kind of inquisition. So I think the issue is not about whether it's right to appoint judges. Judges, of course, are outstanding candidates for any high office in our country. But I think the issue is really how we are dealing with political differences and political issues in our country today. That's what we need to somehow put right and get right.
So if I understand your answer correctly, you're saying that the best way of protecting individuals who've become justices and achieved a certain eminence as judges is to in fact not make them governors, and therefore in their own self-interest they shouldn't be made governors. Have I understood you correctly?
Well, it's not. Yeah, you understood me correctly. But it's not only about being appointed governors. They would be appointed. Judges will be appointed Lokpal. Judges will be appointed. Are appointed on various tribunals. These are people who've been. I'm talking about Supreme Court judges who've been right on the top and highly admired. And then they end up in bodies which are then subject to judicial review of the present Supreme Court. So I think we need to rethink many of these things from fundamental first principles and then decide where it will be appropriate and where it won't be appropriate.
Lalitha Kumaramanganam, before I broaden the discussion to the level to which Salman Khurshid is raising it, I want to come back pointedly and particularly to Justice Sathashivam's case, because there's a further complication in making him a governor. In April 2013, he was the judge who in fact quashed an FIR against Amit Shah and then proceeded to give Amit Shah bail. Now, the chairman of the All India Bar Association has written a letter to the President of India where he says, and I'm quoting him, "In close succession to the said decision and soon after retirement, the grant of a position which is essentially at the pleasure of the government is bound to be viewed with suspicion." And secondly, that Bar Association has said they are going to challenge this appointment in court.
Karan, I'd just like to say that in this day of continuous 24 hours TV coverage, any appointment is criticized and everybody gives an opinion on it, especially if it is anything that is considered remotely political. While I agree with part of what Mr. Khurshid said, that is, the days have changed today, politics is very different from what it was earlier. But in defense of Justice Sathashivam, I'd like to say that when Fatima Bibi was appointed the governor of Tamil Nadu, it wasn't as if Tamil Nadu was not a divisive political, it didn't have a divisive political spectrum at that time. But besides that,
You're
the same
sidestepping.
Had also said this before he retired.
No, but forgive me.
No, I'm not. I'm coming to it. The same Justice Sathashivam, whom you say has given bail to Amit Shah about a year ago, is also just a few months ago, before he retired, the person who said that he would prefer that the collegium of judges to appoint a Supreme Court judge over perhaps a commission of that will consist of others, not just the judges. So I don't think Justice this particular gentleman can be considered as somebody who's led by the nose.
No, but you're ignoring the point. You're ignoring the point the Bar Association is raising. They are suggesting that Justice Sathashivam is being getting a benefit for the judgment he gave. This is a reward for giving bail to Amit Shah. That's the allegation, and that allegation surely is damaging not just of the justice but the judiciary.
That is the allegation they have made. That is the allegation that they have made, but that I think is unfairly politicizing something. This particular gentleman was not the Chief Justice of India when the BJP was in power, A, and B, I think he has presided over many decisions.
But he was the judge who gave bail to Amit Shah. You seem to be sidestepping that issue repeatedly. The connection between Mr. Shah, who is now party president, and him is a direct one, and the allegation is therefore damaging.
Yes. Karan, the fact is that you can't, to give bail to anybody is neither unconstitutional nor unlawful.
All right.
Amit Shah had applied for bail several times. Finally, when it came up to the Supreme Court, he was granted bail. You must remember that Amit Shah was also in jail for a considerable amount of time. So, just because bail is granted to somebody who's an accused, it doesn't make that particular judge, how do you say, vulnerable.
Well, that's your explanation. I want to bring in Soni Sorabji.
Because then you're casting doubt.
Let me bring in Soni Sorabji. You've made your point. Let me bring in Soni Sorabji. Soni Sorabji, do you think this particular example, and this is now an accusation being made publicly by the All India Bar Association, do you think this example in fact illustrates your concern? That people will turn around and say of a judge who becomes a governor, he's only got it because he passed this judgment, it benefited Mr. A, now Mr. A is rewarding him. Is that one of the illustrations that in fact proves your concern?
Well, Karan, we should be a little careful, because it's not fair to think that when he granted bail, Sathashivam thought he would be appointed governor. I don't think we should attribute to them. It's a question of principle. As Salman rightly said, we can make use of the talents, the skills, but in what? Appoint heads of judicial tribunals dealing with matters of public importance, surely. What I try to point out is, from the very nature of the post of the governor, who the Supreme Court said need be removed, can be removed without any cause being shown, without any hearing being given, without any notice being given. In that position, do you want a Chief Justice to be placed? There's a very judgment to which Sathashivam was a party. I argued it. The Supreme Court didn't accept my arguments. I said, please, give him some notice, some hearing. No. Therefore, why put yourself in a position where from the very nature of your functions, formation of ministry, bound to be controversial? Should the House be dissolved? Bound to be controversial. So therefore, don't put him in that position.
Let me put that point.
Particularly when public perception of the judiciary is, as I said, rather low.
Let me put that point to KTS Tulsi. Mr. Tulsi, you are arguing the exact opposite of Soni Sorabji. How do you respond to his two concerns? One, the several decisions governors take, such as formation of government or dissolution of assembly, are inherently political and could be challenged. And secondly, what happens if the government of the day wishes to dismiss a judge who's been made a governor and the gentleman believes he's being wrongly dismissed? He then has to go to court and submit himself to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, having once been Chief Justice of that court himself. Is it not an invidious position, and is it not best to protect him from getting into those sort of troublesome waters?
Yeah, I don't think so. And firstly, Karan, I want to correct one fact. Justice Sathashivam did not quash any FIR against Amit Shah. Justice Sathashivam did not grant bail. It was another bench which granted bail. I don't know on what basis this bar association, some kind of a bar association is making this allegation. This is factually incorrect.
Well, in fact, it's just so that you know, it's a letter written by Adish Agarwal, who calls himself the president of the All India Bar Association. It was circulated widely yesterday, and it's been sent to the President of India. And he makes this accusation, and he says that is the basis on which he challenged it to court.
It's factually incorrect.
It's incorrect.
It's factually incorrect.
Okay, but come back.
It's factually incorrect.
I'll take your word for it.
And I want to say that so
come back to Soli's point. Are you placing judges who become governors in an invidious position?
No, I don't think so. I think that actually the judges will raise the level of the manner in which the central government will deal with them, because they are in a position to advise them, rather than being dictated to that now you don't grant assent, now you do reserve it for the president, or let it come back and now again you send, or you keep sitting on it, put it in cold storage. These kind of things which are happening with the governors will perhaps be, the central government will desist from that and will take the level of the role of the governor to the original state in which it is envisaged in the constitution.
Well,
and I think that if the governor is removed, he is so much, he'll just go home. How does it matter?
Well, yes, one assumes he'll go home, but there's no guarantee he will. I mean, he could still contest in court and end up in the invidious position Soli Sarabji talks about. You're overlooking that, aren't you?
I don't think all that will happen. In fact, he will be regarded, he will be dealt with far more judiciously. The government itself, the state government as well as the central government, will be very careful in not making any such demands.
Let me put those 2 points to Salman Khurshid, who on matters of principle felt that in fact it was wrong to make such people governors. They need to be, as he put it, protected. What you're hearing from Mr. Tulsi is that, first of all, if a judge becomes a governor, the government of the day will treat him differently, treat him properly, and therefore treat governors the way they should be treated. And secondly, he made an earlier point that because judges are constitutional experts, they are the right people to be governors, because they will undertake that office with the full knowledge of the constitution, whereas politicians or policemen or civil servants are not so well equipped to do so. How do you respond to those two issues?
Well, the first issue I think is somewhat optimistic. I think government should treat all governors very well. I don't think we should make exception for judges alone, but judges are held in high esteem in society, and judges obviously hold office of very, very important nature, and therefore to say that they are good people and ideal people and qualified to hold further high offices is not something one can contest. The problem really is not about the judges themselves, it's about the system. It's about the system. And the insinuations, the speculation, the questions, even the present questions that are being asked about this appointment, I think are really very unwholesome. I mean, at the end of the day, what is in an office, frankly, if it's going to come with a cloud of this nature? But then, as our good friend from the BJP, Laita, said, that you can't do anything in this country today without being queried and questioned, and without having people argue about it. Yeah. It's very sad, isn't it? And I think that this is how this is in a situation in which judges try to keep themselves away from controversy. And here you're really asking for walking straight into controversy. So, frankly, ultimately, it's their decision, their choice.
Lalita Kumaramangam, I'm going to quote to you what Arun Jaitley, now the Finance Minister and Defence Minister, said in February last year when he was leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha. That was literally just about 18 months ago. According to the Hindu, he said judges of the Supreme Court and the High Courts must not be eligible for jobs in government after retirement. And he wasn't just talking about governorships, he was talking about a whole range of jobs to which governments tend to appoint judges. And he was very clear, do not make them eligible, do not consider them for these posts, because it casts aspersions and doubts upon their performance when they were in office as judges. Why today is your government gratuitously ignoring Mr. Jaitley's advice?
Karan, Mr. Jaitley, I think, gave his personal opinion on this matter. And as Mr. Khurshid has pointed out, that ultimately it's up to the individual to decide. Whatever may be the various opinions that are put forth by the bar associations or eminent jurists or eminent lawyers, etc., or I mean, you know, people, or just even politicians in general public, the fact is that if a particular retired judge decides that he does not mind the sort of controversy that holding any public office today in India seems to almost entail, and I'm using that word very consciously, then I don't think that, especially because there's no constitutional legal bar, that we should, you know, sort of discuss it and tear it into pieces, the whole thing.
Okay.
I think, you know, that Justice Sathashivam has made his stand very clear. He has also said that he does not consider it an office of profit, that he has not accepted any sort of payment for any jobs that many judges, retired judges do, especially like arbitration that they get into, and those are paid jobs. Now, I don't think he said that's wrong or right. He's just said that he doesn't see any harm in it because this is not an office of profit.
Okay.
Justice Sathashivam is an extremely experienced and respected man.
Yeah, but we were not talking about Justice Sathashivam. We were talking about your party ignoring Arun Jaitley. Your party has ignored Arun Jaitley. You've deftly passed it off as his personal opinion.
As I said, yes, I think when he was leader of the opposition, he was not a part of the government. So it wasn't the opinion of either the BJP or today, I mean the BJP government.
How convenient. That's all I'll say. How very convenient that you're laughing and smiling yourself.
You don't agree with me.
Sorry, Surabji.
No, I know you don't agree with me, which is why
it's not me who doesn't agree with you. It's Arun Jaitley who doesn't agree with you. Arun Jaitley doesn't agree with you. That's the point I'm making.
Unfortunately, Arunji is not here today to disagree with me, or perhaps fortunately for me.
All right.
But the point
sorry,
is,
let me go to Sorry Surabji. I heard your point.
The himself has said that he is going to probably accept this. Then I don't think that all our arguments hold much water. And anyway,
well, no, I'm not going to accept that. Just because Justice Sathashivam has said he's accepting it doesn't mean we can't question it being offered to him. We have a right to question.
You can question it.
We have a right to question whether he accepts it or not. Sorry, Surabji, let me bring you in at that point. I'm sorry. Justice Sathashivam may or may not accept, but we have a right to discuss what is an official offer being made by the government to a judge and whether that's an appropriate thing to do or a wrong thing to do, which is different to the individual concerned. It's the principle we're talking about. Sorry, Surabji, you were against judges being made governors. Would you in fact agree with the wider point made by Salman Khurshid that in fact there are a whole host of tribunal positions to which they're appointed? Some are even appointed to things like the press council, which is not a tribunal position. Should they in fact be excluded from all such jobs which are in the gift of the government?
No, Karan, the governor has to perform his functions which are bound to be controversial. For example, formation of a ministry, whether a ministry should be dissolved. It's a good thing the BJP has done. They have not appointed one of the party lawyers or one of the politicians, but surely there are eminent educationists, there are eminent jurists, they can be appointed. Okay. Here the whole question is a person who has occupied the post of a Chief Justice of India. It may be a situation can arise where the central government will find him inconvenient or irritant, they want to transfer him, then what happens? What happens? He goes to court.
You made that point earlier as well.
What will he get from court?
Quite right. Let me put this to Salman Khurshid.
Don't put him in that position, for God's sake. I feel very sad. I have great regard for Justice Sathashivam.
I understand.
But his very independence may be a cause for the central government to say, well, push him up somewhere else.
Absolutely. He's putting himself in a litigious position. And in fact, that's the point I want to take up with Salman Khurshid before I come back to KTS Tulsi. Clearly, this decision to appoint Justice Sathashivam as the governor has created controversy, not just in the media. It's probably split the legal fraternity. It's probably disturbed the judicial fraternity. But of that, obviously, I can't speak with any authority. Given the level of dissent and concern, and the fact that, in fact, the Justice Sathashivam could be putting himself in an invidious position as well, do you think he should himself say, I will reconsider and not accept, in the bigger, wider interest of the judiciary, which is what he served all his life?
Well, it's not really fair for me to be advising him publicly. Don't forget that he's held high office and we've held him in very high esteem. Now, you know, people can agree and disagree with someone who's held high office, but I think that you've got to at least grant it to him that he has the ability to decide and take the right option.
Okay.
And then whatever he decides, I think we should respect him for it.
Well, absolutely. This is not a question of questioning his personal integrity, although, to be honest, question marks have been raised by that and maybe unfairly by the All India Bar Association. But it is a wider question of principle. And let me put my last question in that context of the question of principle to you, Mr. Tulsi. In 2012, Nitin Gadkari, then the BJP president, proposed that no judge should be given a job in the gift of the government until 2 years had lapsed after his retirement. In other words, there should be a clear 2-year cooling off period. If that were to be observed, would it ease the controversy each time such appointments are made? A quick answer, please.
Yes, I think that will be a good idea. Cooling off is a good idea. You know, we have had Justice Hidayatullah serving as the Vice President. We've had Justice Hegde serving as the Speaker. And all the various other judges, they have brought dignity, greater dignity to their offices. They really understand the finer nuances, and they have added something.
But you're also saying a 2-year cooling off period is a wise thing. That's the point I want to emphasize.
Is a wise thing.
All right, let's hope governments listen.
It's a wise thing.
Let's hope governments listen. Let's hope they're prepared to accept that small measure of restraint. Very quickly, Lalita, because we're out of time. Will you advise your government in future that a 2-year cooling off period might be a wise thing?
That Nitin Gadkari's suggestion is a very sensible suggestion, and I agree with Mr. Tulsi. I'd also like to say that if any retired judge decides to put service above self,
well, Lalita, I'm stopping you there. We can't go back to that discussion, but I'm going to underline one thing for the audience with a smile on my face. You may not agree with Arun Jaitley, but I'm delighted you agree with Nitin Gadkari. Unfortunately, your government hasn't taken Nitin Gadkari's advice either. Justice Sathashivam has been barely retired for 4 months, nowhere near the 2 years that Nitin Gadkari had stipulated. Anyway, while everyone is smiling, it's time to end. Go ahead, very quickly.
Karan, I just want to mention that this appointment, of course, if the Chief Minister has not been consulted, is a big blow to federal structure of the country.
Absolutely, but that's a different issue. That's a different issue. That would be the case even if it were appropriate to appoint judges as governors. So that's a different issue altogether. My thanks to all 4 of my guests for joining me.